Hello music creators, Mike here, and in this video you will learn how to use the super powerful waveform effects in Omnisphere. Are you ready? Let's do this. Alright, so to access the oscillator effects, or as I call them, the waveform effects, regardless if you use a sample or synth on any layer, you can simply click this plus sign here, which open up the oscillator effects. All these are different effects. Frequency modulation, ring modulation, wave shaper, unison, harmonia, and granular mode, which I will explore in another video. So if you go back, you can also get into any of these straight away right here. You can add, let's say, a unison to this by clicking here, and then you get into this automatically, turn it on, and you can add that effect to it. Alright, so let's go through quickly what they are. Now, I started with a simple triangle waveform, just to have this soft sound to start out with. Okay, so the first one, or these first two ones, in fact, frequency modulation and ring modulation, are very technical and advanced modulation of your waveform or oscillator that you can read more about online if you want to, but basically they both, in my opinion, adds a kind of robotic, harsh and digital character to your sound. So let's play an octave in the low end. Without, turn on frequency modulation. Let me play without something. And with it. As you can hear, more digital and a bit more harsher. And the main aspect is the modulator waveform, which modulates your main waveform. So here you can have, for example, an attitude without. And you can actually even hear that this waveform is applied to the triangle. And then you can set the frequency of the frequency modulation and the depth. So at the lowest setting, it's like a dry, wet knob here. And then you can go into these advanced parameters like frequency, shape, and you can even see the waveform change here. I mean, this you can go ahead and do crazy modulation, but in its initial form, it basically makes the sound harsher and more digital. Now, the ring modulation is also the same thing. It starts with a modulator waveform, and that is applied to your initial waveform. And again, it creates a more harsher digital tone. I usually leave these in the middle here and just play around mainly with the modulator waveform. That is the most important one with the depth here. Alright, so those are frequency modulation, ring modulation. Wave shaper is really cool because it's a bit crusher and a sample rate reducer, and you have this shaper frequency in the middle. So you can do bit crushing. Let's play in the low one. Which reduces the bit, so it basically makes the sound lower quality. That's what this wave shaper does, and also the sample rate. I mean, you can go insane, and you get back to old school computer sounds almost here. And the shaper frequency can do a bit as well, but basically these two sliders are most important for the bit crusher and sample rate reducer right here. Okay, so next we get to my two favorites, the unison and harmonia. Unison is basically creating, as you can see, if I increase the depth here, slightly detuned and stereo spread waveforms of the same one. Basically, think of it as play one violin, like this. Let's assume this is a violin. And then you let 8 violin players play the same phrase. That creates a fatter sound because all of them have different tuning and timing differences and so on. So you can. And it will actually be more pronounced if you use a waveform with more overtones like this saw wave here. So without unison, with it. Without, with. The depth is how many basically waveforms are added, as you can see here from this visual. The spread is in the stereo field. So here we can have a fat sound, but in the middle, but I prefer increasing this in the stereo field, and you can choose how much detune is applied to each of these with this slider, and how analog character, basically variations of each waveform. Even some analog drift, where you hear if I hold the sound that they go out of tune. I usually have this on very low setting, analog a bit higher, and these are the main guys here to play with here, the depth and the spread here. Alright, so that is unison. The Harmonia is similar in that it adds more waveforms, but here you can actually set them, instead of unison, the same tuning in intervals. So this one, default mode here is a 7th above, and let's do this one an octave above, and you practically have a power chord. So I play without and with. And you can have up to 4 here, so you can have an octave below, and let's put that in unison 0, and now you have, if I play C, without and with. And you can pan them differently, have them at different levels, detune them, and this is slide detune as opposed to this interval. Even have different shape, symmetry, and sync for each of these oscillators or waveforms created. And you can even call up some presets here if you want to. I believe, yeah, the Wave Shaper as well has presets, not these ones here. Right, so those are the oscillator effects or waveform effects. I've not gone through the granular effect, because I will do that in a different video on my channel. So anyway, you can do this on any layer. So you can have, let's say this one here. Let's apply a different layer, like a triangle. And let's put that, and let's use a wave shaper on this one. So that waveform or oscillator effect is applied to B, while the A have its own effects added, in this case Harmonia. So if I layer them up, click here. That is really powerful, that you can have a separate effect chain, or what you want to call it here, per layer. So what's also cool is that when you go into here, if you have activated the Harmonia, you cannot use the unison mode or the granular mode because they are red here, but you can use the ringing modulator. So you can, in some cases, use 2 different effects at the same time. However, you should be careful with using too much of these oscillator or waveform effects because they take a lot of CPU. But go ahead and experiment, and I will see you in the next video. Now choose which video you are going to watch next, or you can check out the amazing bonuses in the video description.